Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Arwen Lewis on the Arwen Lewis Radio Show. I'm part of the Jeremiah Show, and my segment interviews local and independent musical artists to showcase their careers and their music and experiences in the world of the music business. Today, my very special guest is Los Angeles-based musician, songwriter, and film composer and scene staple George Adrian. Hi, George. How's it going?
I'm all right. How you doing, Arwen?
Good. Did you like my speech?
Yeah, it was really nice. Except for the film composer part, it's been about 25 years, but I do dabble in cues here and there. But yeah.
Well, I wanted to at least talk about some of the stuff you've
Sure,
done in
heck
the
yeah,
past.
yeah, of
It's
course,
super cool.
100%.
Awesome. Well, welcome. So I thought we'd just kind of start by talking about like where you got into music in the first place. I was reading your bio and it says that you started playing at the age of 5. So what made you start to play music?
That's my dad. He was very musical. At one point he was an opera singer, and he just loved classical music and thought I'd be a classical pianist. So
Yeah.
about 12 years old, I ruined that for him and wanted a guitar after I heard Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath. I'm like, no, I think I want to play that electric thing. That sounds cool. So.
Well, I feel like metal and Black Sabbath or any of those bands had like a classical influence.
Oh,
You
for
know?
sure. Yeah. I mean, it's all music, right? And so I also was, a Greek immigrant. So my parents was exposed to a lot of Greek folk music as well. A lot of musicians coming through since my dad was really into music. And so there was always music at the house. I was learning a lot. In fact, that's why I tend to dabble in a lot of like waltzes, 3/4s, and 6/8 time signatures. It's just because I had that instilled in me so young.
Yeah.
But yeah, music's music. And I mean, if you listen to like my last release, my solo release, the road trip, to what I'm doing with my new band now, with what I do with you and your dad, it's wild landscape, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
go from some parts like really heavy. I mean, recently touring with Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains, playing that heavy music to some of the more beautiful vocal melodies that you and I and your dad put together on those songs that we're writing, right? So it's across the spectrum.
Well, and I feel like that's really cool that because you're so versed, you're able to jump between all these genres, and it's kind of like an exploration of different aspects of life and like the human conditions, and like you're able to do that through
Yeah,
music.
agreed. Yeah, you know what I'm absolutely right. It depends what you feel like expressing at a certain time in your life. For a long time, I was as being a club dog, LA scene staple. If you would, however you put it, was actually much better than the way I put it. But I also started a band about 20 years ago, and we made a lot of noise during the time that music business was dying. After Napster came out, everything was collapsing. I think the numbers were something like it went from a $9 billion a year enterprise to 4. I remember a lot of friends losing their jobs. And never getting back into the music business. A&R guys, people in all different facets of the industry. And it was tough sledding for us then, and we had already been kind of like, so to speak, jaded, I guess, a little bit. I'd been signed to Arista, and that's different things that I've been doing in my early 20s. And then when I was putting this band together, my next band, Jay, with my partner Chad, we thought it would be like a lifelong endeavor.
Yeah.
Fortunately, he passed away last year. I know that's a drag, and so I had to like also switch gears into like what I was going to do next.
Right.
And so I started a new band. I'm very excited about that for the next chapter of my life. And also meeting you and your dad, that was totally unexpected in the club scene. And
Yeah.
the music we express is probably one of the freest, most purest truth music, I guess. That's how I feel. It's the only way I can really, it's
Yeah.
so honest. It's so musical.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like we talk about like our 3 generations, like 3 different
Yeah.
perspectives coming together and agreeing on something musically, and all of these 3 different personalities, and all bands do that, right? Everybody has something that they bring to the table. But I think there's this really interesting dynamic between all of us. And for me, it's been so cool because I've learned so much, and especially about harmony. And
Oh my God. Yeah. I remember at first when I was just like sitting there when we were writing songs, Peter and I, and he would say something, and I would like that. You know, inside, I would literally say, "Oh, that sounds terrible."
Yeah.
I'm like what is he thinking? You know, and then I'd
Yeah.
go home and I'd sit with it. I'm like, oh my God, it's genius. You know, I mean, it's really genius. And then I started to just be open to like this perspective from what he has seen and how he puts stuff together. And then when you came in there, and he started, you know, we're like, let's work on these 3-part harmonies.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, you know, and then our voices, I think, naturally kind of blend well. So we're just lucky in that way.
Yeah.
And then where he would take us, you know, like his knowledge of harmony, I'm like, oh wow, that I hadn't ever really experienced it like that, you know. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool that, I mean, you know, and what I bring to it, what you bring to it, our points of view, like yeah, absolutely.
Well, and because I mean, we all come from very different backgrounds. I mean, I kind of was an offshoot from him because that's where I started learning. But I had
Sure.
him on the show last week. And what I really pointed out too was that he had so much exposure, well, to classical music. And like he was learning a lot of instrumental surf music that was really complex, like Dick Dale and things like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
when he was younger. But when he was a child, he would see all these Broadway musicals, and I feel like all of that, those song structures and the music, because he had already, began to understand the foundations of music, they became kind of like engraved in like the way he writes songs. Like I feel like they're all, even though he shortens them and cuts and pastes things, like for some reason it ends up coming out to be, I don't know, just like a full and complete piece that could fit into a musical. And it's weird how he like changes keys and musically it doesn't really make any sense, but for
Yeah.
some reason
And
it
then it's
sounds
genius
great.
when you sit back and listen to it and live with it. You know, that's to me like is the best music too. Like music that takes like some actual like sit down and listening time. You know,
Yeah.
and then when those, you know, block boxes start opening up, you're like, oh my God, you
Yeah.
know, and then it sticks with you forever. And it's like those, and it marks time even, you know, like this time in my life because of this.
Well, yeah, and like, well, I want to talk about like kind of the stuff in the beginning of your career too, like with Jay. Like, how did you meet them? Were you in the Cat Club because you were a resident in the Cat Club, right? When you
Yeah,
were
I did. I was 11 years, twice a week. Um,
okay,
yeah, and in fact, I was the very last note ever played there live on it was a Saturday night, the night they closed. But yeah, and actually, Dee Dee Ramone, before he passed away from the Ramones,
Mhm.
he had a short-lived residency there as well, and I was opening for Dee Dee,
Cool.
and he had met my partner Chad,
Okay.
and Chad is like probably the most knowledgeable, or was the most knowledgeable music historian. I mean, he could sit down with him and he would open up like an encyclopedia about everything. I mean, he
That's
just
great.
knew music in and out. And I guess Dee Dee was really enamored by that and asked him to DJ between bands. And so Chad was up there, and after, you know, a couple months of me playing, you know, obviously I would hang out, watch Dee Dee or whatever, maybe come a little early, hang out. And I started listening to the songs being played over in the bar, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like, how does he even know half this music? So
Yeah.
eventually, I just went up there, introduced myself, and I'm like, hey man, like your selection of music's insane. And he's like,
Yeah.
he really got a kick out of that. And
Okay.
he was in a band at the time that had broken up just recently. They were, I think, the first band actually ever signed through Drive Through Records, which is a pretty well-to-do like punk label.
Okay.
And they just imploded. They were called Cousin Oliver,
Okay.
and he was like looking to do. He was really into Elliott Smith, and he wanted to do something like that for himself. And then when he's asked me if I would produce it and play guitar in it because he really, you know, he got to listen to me play all the time and sing. I said absolutely. And then when we started, just kind of like him and like Peter and I, you know, like all of a sudden we just started working on his music, and he's like, heck, let's just start a band, and we just wrote our own music. And we met this guy, Owen Sloan, who was a very, he's like a big figure in the music industry. Like he's like at the Clive Davis level. He's
Right.
Google him. So, and
I know who he is. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And oh, that's right. Your dad actually knew who he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was really into us from the beginning, and he really tried to put us together. And then we met at the time, like I said, the music industry was imploding, but things were in flux like every day. And then Rogers and Collin, which is a very big, I think they might be the biggest PR firm there is, you know, and they were trying to like make themselves relevant to smaller labels and indie bands, and so they went on a search for like a band in Los Angeles that they could help promote. And they picked us, out of and so we were, all these amazing people were in, had a hand in Jay. And so we put out our first release, and it was like, we were kind of an indie darling for a little while. Yeah. And we turned down a few things because we had been, worked in the music business, having record deals, things like that, in the old school way, not the new paradigms. And we were just comfortable taking our time, and I thought I had time. I thought it was a lifelong endeavor, but again, life is how it is. And but it's an amazing journey.
Yeah, and you've got all those recordings and the memories, and that's what's so cool about music. And we'll pick up with this after the break too. But is that like it's timeless. Once you've recorded it and it's there, like there's no way of like, I mean, I guess there's a way of destroying it, but not really. It's there somewhere now, especially everything. And so you can always it take a song or a recording or a piece of music takes you back to, how you felt at the time when you were making it, or maybe you learn something new every time you hear the song. And I was listening to David Frick interview somebody, and he was talking about how, like, when you hear a record or you go to a live show, it's like you go there, you're one person when you arrive, and then when you leave, if it's like done its job, you leave as a new person, like a catharsis.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely.
And your music does that. But we're gonna pick up with more of this conversation after the break. My special guest today is George Adrian, musician and songwriter and touring musician from Los Angeles. And we're gonna take you out to break with his song "Soldier of Fortune." And that's off of his solo record, Road Trip. This is one of my favorite songs. And we'll bring you back in from the break with How Do You Know, another one of my favorite songs. And you can find out more about George Adrian at official George Adrian on Instagram. And then your website, again, is it officialgeorgeadrian.com?
It's just George Adrian.
georgeadrian.com.
Yeah.
And cool. And you can find him on all the listening platforms under his name, George Adrian, and you're listening to Arwen Lewis on the Arwen Lewis Radio Show. Enjoy Soldiers of Fortune. Okay. Oh, so the next one's going to be 20 minutes? Okay, cool.
More time to go.
Okay. 20-minute segment.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
So we should definitely chat about our thing, yeah. And I've got my new band to chat a little bit about.
Yeah.
But I think going forward rather than backwards, yeah.
Yeah. No, I was gonna ask you. This is what I did.
Nah. Okay. Yeah. I'll let you run the show.
No. But so why don't we start? But I'll just say, let's just start by talking about your new band and your new project and what we can expect from the EP and like recording, analog, digital, and then we can go into what we do and promote our shows and stuff too.
Yeah. And this will be promoting our show on Saturday, yeah?
Yeah. So, and this will air in LA, right? Like before the 5th of August.
August, I can make sure it does.
Okay, he'll make sure it airs in LA.
Awesome.
I will, yeah.
Cool.
So we'll do that. Okay, so anytime?
We should air it Friday and Monday and all that.
That would be great. This Friday and then Monday. Yeah, because then the following Saturday. Monday and next Friday would be awesome. Because then Saturday will be the show. Okay, cool. I'll remind you. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. 20 minutes.
Cool.
All right. Good morning, everybody. You're listening to the Arwen Lewis Radio Show. I'm here with my very special guest, George Adrian. He's an accomplished musician, singer, and songwriter, recording artist, and touring musician. Also has had some experience in composing for film. And we're here talking today about his extensive career in the music business. You can find more information out about him at georgeadrian.com. And we're going to jump back into the conversation and talk about a new project you've got going with Alex. How do you say his last name?
Locascio.
And then
Audrey Wiechman.
Whiteman. Okay.
Yeah.
Terrible handwriting.
It's all good. Yeah. Nicely done. Yeah, very cool for reading up on that. Yeah. One of my closest friends, Tyler Bates, is a very accomplished film composer and producer. We were in the local bands in Chicago where we both came up and became fast friends. He's probably one of my best friends in the world. and
Yeah.
is one of my best friends in the world. And when we started out, that's actually where we first composed. We got this gig to help out his brother who was working on a movie that ended up being like a cult classic called Psycho Cop 2.
Right.
And then the director, and then the people from that camp kind of got us another gig, which was scoring a feature film called The Blue Flame. So we did that. I saw the bug in him, and he was like, you know what? I think I could see that the writing was on the wall. He really enjoyed film composing. He was going to go down that road and made it a huge success. I mean, if you know Tyler Bates, he's done all the John Wick movies, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. I mean, it's a long run of an awesome career.
Yeah.
And producing amazing artists as well. But that being said, so he had the band in Chicago, was longtime drummer Alex Locascio.
Okay.
And so he moved out here with later, I guess, a little bit after Tyler. And then they had a band called Pet for a little while in the 90s, which is a really cool art band that was signed through Tori Amos.
Okay.
And so Alex would always, cut drums and do some showcases for me. He's just like a world-class musician. And so he was always since I've known him as long as I knew Tyler. Obviously, he was just in and around the circle. We never in a real band together for more than like a minute, but we tried to, like, he always helped, and like if I needed someone on a demo or this or that or a gig.
Right.
So we stayed in touch. When I knew the process with my buddy, like when he wasn't doing so well, I was like, well, what am I gonna do in the future? I'm like, I put it in his ear, like, hey, I think I want to start something, for like the next, I don't know, 10 years. So we'll just or sooner. You never know, right? But I'm like, if you know anybody, I'm gonna be touring 22 and 23, but I'll be in town for these dates and these dates. Maybe we can get together and have a beer at the worst. Start a band at the best.
Win-win.
Yeah, win-win, right? So we got in a room, and he suggested Audrey. He had been playing with her for like 20 years or something like that, and it just day one was kick ass.
Yeah.
Day two was more kick ass. So it just kept going and going, and we just kept we literally wrote like one or two songs every time we got together.
That's how you know it's meant to be.
Yeah. So we ended up recording about almost like a dozen of them, and a little less, and then we're going to put out 5 of them as an EP this fall.
And do you have a band name? I don't know if I caught that or not.
Yeah, we have whittled it down to 7 Star.
Oh, that's a cool name.
Thanks.
What's the meaning behind it?
You know what? After you have a spreadsheet with 4,000 names on it,
you're just like,
you get
this one and this one.
Yeah, literally, that's how we did it.
That's awesome.
So we like the alliteration. We're going with that. It's there's just so many. All the one-word names are taken.
Yeah.
So 7 Star. There you go.
That's a cool name.
Thanks.
Very groovy.
Hopefully you'll remember it. Yeah.
Oh, everyone will. Watch out. 7 Star is going to take over the world with their new EP.
Cool.
So that's something you've been working on. And also, I guess we can talk about a little more about what we're doing with my dad too, if you want to.
That would be awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's very important music. And I think what I would really like to make sure is like we were talking about how we're going to release this EP. So when Peter and I and you got together, like it's been about 5-6 years, and we kept writing, and we put these songs together. I'd say there's probably about at least a dozen, right? I mean, commingled. Someone wrote a little bit more than the other. I mean, your songs, we all kind of just got in there, and the 3-piece version of it I thought was a great idea because, like you said earlier, like having it multi-generational, I think it's a cool story. Our voices blend well together, and the music is very, very unique and very raw and very truthful.
Yeah.
And then I really wanted this to be like a proper recording with like sit down with some studio musicians, but the pandemic and whatnot, and like being you guys being up here and up there and me being down here. I think our solution, what we should tell everybody, is we're going to release a live EP, which I'm actually a little bit more excited now.
That's going to be fun.
And it's,
and come to the show. It's on August 23rd at Lost Chord Guitar in Solvang. We're going to record live to their awesome soundboard. It's a great venue. We've spent a lot of time performing there. I perform there once a month. And the owner's name really quick is Chris Polonis, and he is a sound engineer and great musician, singer, songwriter himself. but he designed the room to be like the most exquisite listening room, and the speakers are perfect. The walls are hollow, and so anyway, if you get the room mics, and then we'll direct straight to the board. Like we're gonna have a great mix, and we'll have
How exciting. Yeah. And what a cool way to put out an EP, live. I mean, truly live. It's going to be live, 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 and
and
the
people are
musicians
always
will be out.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no. Well, I
Yeah.
feel like people are always in a good mood there too. So like it'll be a lot
Yeah.
of vibe from the
Yeah.
audience, and
Yeah.
good time for sure.
So in the end, I think it worked out best for us. I think you discovered the club, yeah, and then
Yeah.
yeah, and so what a jewel,
Yeah.
to know and to have, and yeah, like you said, you obviously played there a lot, and the three of us and other musicians played there a lot.
Yeah.
So we know it. I feel comfortable, and I'm really excited releasing this music. It's been sitting there, kind of like percolating now for 5 years, right?
And
And
some cool songs.
some
Like
cool songs, yeah.
some things that you and my dad have come up with, like I mean, I guess we won't say the names of anything yet because we don't want to ruin the surprise. But wow, like I've never heard anything like it. And I guess what's your guys' writing process like? Do like because like so I wasn't there half of the time when you guys were writing
Yeah.
songs. I kind of came in
Yeah.
later to bring my songs. But how do you guys work together? Let's just tell the audience, what your experience is working with my dad. And by the way, my dad's name is Peter Lewis. He is a founding member of the rock and roll band Moby Grape. And anyway, so we'll keep going and talking about
Yeah, yeah.
George's.
I mean, and well, that's the first. I had never heard of Moby Grape, and so when we were chatting in the bars, and when where I was playing and you were playing and your dad was playing, and getting to know each other, I had to Google it, and then as I Googled it, and I saw I read the stories, I'm like, oh my god. and then as we got together and in rehearsal studios, and just kind of realized that we had something to say, and then we were just kind of like, hey, what do you think about this song? And then he would take it somewhere else. I guess the early part of it was just that getting to know you, but I started to realize, wow, this guy's, like I said, he's I think he's a musical genius. I mean, if you just Google him and read him up, you're very lucky. Your dad's a wildly artistic human being, right?
Yeah.
And so that I started to pay attention to that, and realized that we complemented each other, and the vibe we had going was literally just kind of sitting down, having a Perrier, and just letting it just flow out. I mean, it was just literally flow. We would find ourselves in these old school way of writing, just let something come for 20, 30 minutes on a vibe and a vamp. And then we'd sit down and we'd literally write the lyrics right there, what we wanted to say. And if the universe was kind, and we were both, and they would come out and they would work. And then he'd come back a week later with his 8-track, and we would just track it there and just keep plowing ahead until all these songs appeared.
Yeah, that's what his favorite thing is. Forge ahead.
Yeah.
Favorite thing.
Yeah, right.
But so that's a digital board, right? It's called a BR 1180, I guess a Boss Roland thing. But or I guess I don't know if it's digital, but what do you prefer for recording? Like, do you like to record analog or digital? I mean, I know a lot of people prefer analog because of the sound, but digital for the convenience. Or I mean, I feel like the experience of analog is more fun and intriguing, but if you need to get something done quick, digital is better. But then there's all those other, there's ways to save money digitally too.
Yeah.
But what's your preference, and how do you record how'd you record Road Trip?
All interestingly, I did it all digitally, but in order to I didn't cut and paste like you would in Pro Tools. I even purposely went over some lines, not sloppy, but just making sure that the listener would hear that there was, it wasn't the same vocal line from the previous chorus, or there was something different. I do actually prefer, if I had my druthers, I would record analog, just because that's the way I grew up, and that's the sound that I do like. But digitally speaking, now you can get so close, that same warmth can be cheated. So why not, for expediency's sake? So yeah, a little bit of both. I will say this though, I was hired to be the musical director for this film that ended up getting derailed, but it would have been a great movie. It's called The Last Beat.
What was it about?
It was about the last 2 weeks of Jim Morrison's life in Paris. And so the director hired me to get like, but it wasn't the Doors. It was I forgot what they were called, but they were. It wasn't Jim Morrison. It was Jay Douglas, right? So it was like not a true biopic, but kind of like inspired by.
Yeah.
And so they wanted sound-alike music, and I went into my buddy's studio, and Jason Achilles, who I knew had a analog studio, and I'm like, I hired a jazz guy, drummer, and my buddy, who's an amazing keyboardist, Lindsey Vanoy, who's out on tour with Elton John right now.
Cool.
I brought him in, and I just recorded it live, trippies, psychedelic, Doors music, all to tape, straight to tape, and that nothing else. And it did sound like you were in the 60s, I mean, like the songs just sounded true to the form. And even after being, digitally copied, it was cool to go back there for a minute. But
can you find that music anywhere, or is it wasn't released?
No, it wasn't released. It was just for the film. Yeah. And
Okay.
Unfortunately, the producers ended up squabbling, and they, money got in the way. Happens.
You can always redo it.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, the recordings are really cool. I'd love to get them out there actually someday.
Yeah, and like I wanted to ask you too about if you self-produced. Well, I'll just move into that. Did you self-produce Road Trip, or did you have?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was, when my buddy moved to Portland to kind of take care of his health, and that started, I had nothing to do. So I was like, all right, well, the Cat Club had closed, and then I started up a new residency somewhere else, but it was just a little bit different scene. The scene was changing, and all my usual suspects weren't around. So the same drummer actually for that movie that I was just telling you about, The Last Beat, this guy Stephen Hines, he's an amazing drummer. I said, hey man, I've got these collections of thought. This is like a very atmospherical record, and it's a little bit more subdued than what I normally do, but that's just the mood that I was in, talking about what you feel like expressing.
Yeah.
And I brought him in, and it's my buddy Tyler's studio, and we cut the whole thing in a day, and then over the next couple of years, I just slowly brought in different musicians and had fun self-producing it. But mixing, I even mixed it, which is not for the faint of heart, and I'll never do that again. So,
really? Yeah.
It's like it's a black art. I mean, it's just nuts. I don't even know how people do it.
Like mix their own music, or mix in general?
Mix in general, mix your own, just mixing, period. I mean, there's just so much to it. I mean, the frequencies, hunting them down, is this right where it should be, and then when it sounds good for a minute and you add another instrument, all of a sudden everything goes wonky, and you're hunting those frequencies down for a week or two. I mean, it's just another thing. It just almost takes the soul. By the time I got done with Road Trip, I didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I mean, I really enjoy mixing, but I've always had a sound engineer, and I've been exploring with sound, but it's I feel like it just takes so much time to learn how to, once you know how to do all those things, it's it's easy. And then, but when, I don't know, for whatever reason, it's super daunting too, but it's nice to be the artist telling the engineer what to do. But
heck yeah. Yeah. Well, that 100%. Yeah, definitely I have strong opinions about what I feel it should sound like. It's just getting that. That's
it definitely sounds ethereal and atmospheric, and very there's a lot of water elements in there too, I feel like.
Oh wow, trippy, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I was listening to it on the way down here again. It just there's something just oceany. It's very fluid. Everything moves perfectly together, and then also it just takes you out into space, which is and the lyrics are beautiful.
Thank you.
And your voice, you seem like a bird.
Come on, back at you. Same of your record. It's interesting. I'm actually very jealous of the honesty and the closeness of your voice on your record, your EP that you just put out. I feel like I'm right in the room with you. I don't know how you did that. It's just so cool.
That's what I want. That was my thing. I was I want it to sound like you're in the room with the musicians. And Graham Palmer, the engineer, he made that happen. I mean, he's a musician too. He's in part of a band called the Mad Caddies, and he's done I think he has a solo project called Kinotech. But I don't know, he's been playing music for you forever. Yeah. And I feel like when you're working with a musician he's also been educated formally in sound engineering.
Okay.
And just was super easy to work with too. Like would just do whatever you tell him to do, or ask him to do, and he would give a lot of advice, which was really nice. And for some reason, and just the people that I got to work with, you played on there on Man on the Moon and sang on there. I love that low
Love that
harmony.
song.
It ended up working out. My John D. Nicola, he was like, it sounds like Cowboy Junkie. I was like, I guess
right
that's
on.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes and no. But I wanted it to sound like you were like floating in space, and it's totally out of time. The drummer, his name's Austin Beatty. He totally played it perfectly out of time because it was on accident because I like recorded the guitar track just wrong when I did it, but they made it work.
It sounds beautiful. Yeah. And that is, it is outer space. Yeah. I'd love the way that song's always maybe. I know we tweaked it a little bit when we play it with the three of us, me, you, and Peter. I love that. I love it that way as well. But I love that's the original, like that. I remember like when you brought that song in, that's how the way it came out on your record is how you brought it in.
And those harmonies that you originally kind of arranged those, I think, when we were with Nick, our bass player Nick, and my dad and John, we were at a rehearsal one night, and then you kind of they were like church or gospel harmonies almost or something.
Yeah.
Which and that I wanted that vibe. I wanted it to the guitar, like my electric guitar, to be like slightly out of tune and sound like kind of garage rocky. I don't know. I love the vibe.
That's a beautiful song.
Thank you. But and then before we go to break, I also wanted to ask really quickly, where did you say this already? Did you write all the songs for Road Trip for the record, or were those like collections of songs that you had like over the years?
Actually, I wrote that for that time, that whole record.
Okay.
I was feeling that way. I was feeling I was late in my life. I was exposed to Robert Frost, and so I was like, the road not taken. I'm like, what's the big deal with this? And then I started reading the poem over and over. I'm like, oh my God, I think it's even better to be exposed to that when you're a little bit, because you've obviously passed a few roads that you can't take again. So that was what, where I was at. I was kind of, in hiatus, right? When my band was like kind of just not there anymore. And my cat club was gone. I was in a different residency in a different place. So that's how I was feeling. And then, and I just wrote it, and I had time on my hands. So I was like, why not? Let's put this fun record together. And one of those songs that my buddy Tyler was kind and helped get Soldier of Fortune, the song that you like, in The Purge. It's a TV show that was out on USA, I believe.
I was thinking that would be a great song for film or like TV or something when I was listening to it. And it's interesting, there aren't really many lyrics, but you say so much,
Oh, right on. Yeah,
the music really carries it.
That's cool that you picked that up. Yeah, that one I really wanted to be that terse, and I wanted to be that concise.
Yeah,
it was kind of tough to do, but I felt like I was able to get that off.
Totally. And it's like, what is it, a 3 or 4 minute song?
Yeah.
That's wizardry. Musical wizardry.
Some luck. Yeah, all right.
Well, I'll remind everybody of who I've got today in the studio. You're listening to the Arwen Lewis radio show, and today my very special guest is a musician and songwriter, touring musician as well, George Adrian. We're featuring songs from his album Road Trip, his most recent solo release, and talking about his projects coming up in the future, a band called Seven Star. It's going to be releasing an EP. He's also a bandmate to me and my dad, Peter Lewis from Moby Grape. We're going to record a live EP in Solvang, California on August 23rd. And George and I, let's tell them about our show really quick.
Let's talk about that, yeah.
I'm going to take everybody out to break, but we are going to be performing Saturday, August 5th at the Redwood Bar and Grill in downtown Los Angeles as part of the International Pop Overthrow Music Festival. Tickets are free, so you can just show up and attend the show. We hope you do. And we're going to take you out to break with his song Grass is Dying. And then we'll bring you back in with another one of his songs called Air. So please enjoy. These songs are from Road Trip, and we'll talk to you in a minute. I think we actually wanted Grass is Dying to be the featured song. Is it possible? Oh, shy.
That's okay.
So what do you want?
What do we got left?
Right now they have we can flip it around, or right now they have Oh Won't You as
the featured song.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Is that okay?
Well,
Yeah.
that one's almost 5 minutes. It's better if the other one shorter.
Yeah, the other one's shorter.
And that's the one he wants, right?
Yeah.
It's no problem to flip stuff around.
Okay, but do I need to
Short
read
set,
Grass is Dying?
Which was what, the first one? Or the second?
That's the one taking us out to break.
Right now.
Yeah.
So you could say, you could switch the 7th song. Just redo it.
Just
Come
read.
back and say, do your outro again.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Give it like a dead space of like 5 seconds so that you see that's what it cut it.
Okay. Okay. So do the outro again?
Yeah, just say, whatever, give out the address to get the tickets.
Okay.
See the singles coming up at the end of the show, the new drop or whatever.
Okay.
And then give out what I've got in slot number 7 as.
Oh, won't. I'll say we're going to take you out to break with Oh, Won't You, and then bring you back in with
Perfect.
Air. Sorry, George.
No, do it up. Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just when you give me a single you want.
Yeah.
It says 7. That's usually.
I know. Sorry. I don't know why I said that that way. Yeah.
So I would just say, this is the one that, this is the premiere.
Okay.
Let me get really clear to me. So
At the very end.
Yeah.
Okay, for sure. So right now, do I?
So let's give it like a 4 or 5 second, just dead space.
Okay.
So Richard knows to take this new intro, this new outro. And erase the old one.
So we're going to head out to break pretty soon here. And my special guest today is musician and songwriter, recording artist George Adrian from Los Angeles, California. And we're talking about his extensive career in the music business and featuring songs from his album Road Trip and also a song by his band Jay. And we're going to take you out to break with his song. Let's see. We're going to take you out. Sorry. Start again.
No, just keep going.
Okay. Sorry, Richard. We're going to take you out to break with his song, Oh, Won't You, and bring you back in from the break with his song Air. And George and I have a couple shows coming up. George, my dad, Peter Lewis from Moby Grape, and myself will be recording with a bass and drums, a live EP at Lost Core Guitar in Solvang on August 23rd. And Saturday, August 5th, George and I are performing together, each of us doing some of our original songs in the International Pop Overthrow Music Festival in Los Angeles at the Redwood Bar at 2 p.m. We hope to see you there. It's a free show, so come on by and listen to the music and enjoy the whole lineup. It's going to be a great day. And you can find out more about George Adrian at georgeadrian.com, on Instagram at official George Adrian. And also you can look him up on all your favorite music platforms under his name, George Adrian. So enjoy his music and we'll see you in a minute.
That is the new end song.
Yeah. Is that all right? Okay.
This is 10 minutes.
Okay, cool. We got 10 minutes left.
Kick ass.
And then is there something else do you want to talk about Jerry Cantrell a little bit? Touring,
Sure, we
or,
can talk about, yeah.
or is there something else that you want to talk about?
That's all I got going right now is 7 Star. That's
Okay,
about
well, let's
it.
talk about
Yeah,
that and
yeah,
your
okay.
songwriting process.
Yeah, all right.
How about that? Okay. Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Arwen Lewis on the Arwen Lewis radio show. My very special guest today is musician, singer, songwriter, and touring musician, George Adrian from Los Angeles, California. And you just heard his song Air off of his solo album called Road Trip. And that was self-produced, self-recorded. And he's got a new project in the works, a band called 7 Star, a trio. And George, I thought we could talk a little bit about your recording process with 7 Star, a little more in depth, and your songwriting process. And can we expect a tour, or what's gonna, what can we expect from you?
Well, it's certainly it's a departure from Road Trip. So what happened was as I was I reconnected with my buddy Alex, and we talked about putting something together. I was touring with Jerry Cantrell, and for the last, I think we started back in 2019 2020 or 2021. I can't remember when we did this Grammy thing, but it was a couple of years ago at least.
Okay.
And that turned into the whole Bright. He has a solo album. His latest release is called Brighten. It's actually an amazing record for people that are into Jerry Cantrell's music. I think it's his first solo album in 20 years.
Wow. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, it's an amazing piece of work. I can't say enough about it. Every song on there is special.
Yeah.
And so when I was, touring and being exposed to the play, we were playing, I think we were given like 65 songs for the tour to learn. So it was a lot,
How long
And
did that take to learn them?
It took a minute, and I think we ended up playing like 45 to 50 of them. And it's, so you're deep diving into this man's music, right? And so obviously a lot of that rubbed off on me while I was doing this. And he has such a unique way of surprise, and the way that he puts his arrangements are very unique, right? I mean, from vocals to just the actual song arrangement. So that definitely, even things that I'm like, how did you make a song out of that sound? It's like, it's mind blowing sometimes. So that all started to through osmosis come into me. And the Audrey, she's our bass player in this trio. She's more of even though I was playing and touring with Jerry Cantrell, I'm not really into that much heavy music as much as Audrey is,
Oh, she really loves it.
Yeah, she just loves.
That's
So
awesome.
so she brings that, and I definitely have. I think I just really love Chicago pop,
Yeah.
and, that Cheap Trick kind of a vibe, and Alex is, tends to lean a little bit jazz, but he's when I say world class drummer, I mean he's ridiculous. So his pocket is so nuts. That whatever you play is going to sound good. So there's very little work for myself. So, and Audrey just brings, she just kind of keeps us rooted a little bit towards the heavy stuff. So if I get a little too weird, it's still, it just gives like a very cool vibe. I guess that's what's happening here. And we all just keep smiling and laughing. And we love that our 3 points of view are turning into this one point of view, like a proper band.
Yeah.
And Audrey also, by the way, is a classically trained singer. So she
Okay.
sings, literally, I think she sings in a choir, like soul, the whole nine. And she's got like a weekly gig. And I don't know why she doesn't want to do the lead singing. She's better than I am. But because of that, and also being exposed to all this heavy, I mean, one of the main reasons I got the gig with Jerry was because of singing, right? He wanted a real lot. He didn't want to, there was no tapes. We were playing Lollapalooza in Sweden last summer, and I walked around and I was looking at all these bands. Everybody had tapes. They were just background, and we were zero tapes. Zero. We were as live gets, and a lot of those harmonies were produced, and and we were doing them live. It was a really cool feeling to look around 4 or 5 of us that could sing really well together, and do some of these, even the Alice songs, and especially his songs. So one thing that I said with Audrey, I'm like, let's bring vocal heaviness into this, and she's such a great singer and harmonizer. So, and of course, with your dad and you as well. I mean, I feel like that's my life's been pushing me that way. So that's what that is. It's a vocal heavy band, a vocal heavy band.
Well, and I mean, that's the most important thing about, if you're going commercial, I feel like, the voice, the character is there. And I'm sure I can't wait to hear this, because I'm sure she probably just compliments you really well, because you have a very distinct timbre and sound to your voice. And it's like totally commercial sounding, and, and like Jerry Cantrell too, like nobody sounds like him. And I think I saw you guys in Ventura, and I was like, so just happy with how great it sounded live.
Right on.
Not everybody can pull that off live, and so I'm really looking forward to hearing this new project that you have, a 7-star too.
Thanks. Yeah, right on. I'm stoked.
Well, and talking about so playing at Lollapalooza versus the Cat Club, what's your favorite environment to perform in, or do you love both? Do you like
it's both. They're both surreal. I mean, you're out there playing music, some of the bigger festivals that we played on the tour, they were fun, but I think I had more fun. When we were playing the theaters, there was especially some of the tighter shows. Like there were some places in in Europe where there was hot and sweaty. It was over the summer last summer, and it was a proper rock show. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It was cool, and we were tight. You know, it was a 7-piece band, and,
Yeah.
and you know, there was a lot of music going on. So
Well, and like I just feel like the and proper rock show, you know, like with all the energy with the huge crowd just like out there.
yeah.
Like, do you feel like that moves you? Like when
Oh
you're
God, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And then like I mean, and I feel like that compared to playing in a small club, like when you're in a small club, it's almost like a little more intimidating, you know. So you could, but it like
100%. Yeah, you know, you're just so naked in a smaller setting like that. You know.
but then I feel like that also kind of like I don't know. I took an acting class once and the teacher he said, you know, use your anxiety or performance anxiety or whatever that is to like give yourself fuel to like find your energy and like learn how to channel that into your art. And and so
Great
I feel
advice. Yeah.
and when you're, you know, it's almost easier because like when you're at a large setting because you're not as exposed, you're further away from the crowd, but there's so much energy coming at you that you've got this adrenaline rush. And then when you're in a small club, it's kind of like, okay, like I have to be a little more, I don't know, astute to what I'm doing, I guess, and just release the whatever the judgment and just do it here anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's an
um,
esoteric art, you know. I mean,
yeah,
it is what it is. I mean, it's beautiful. We're all drawn to it. You know, it's the
yeah,
flame, we're the moth. You know, it's cool. I don't know. It's a lifelong endeavor if you get bit like this, and you know that. You know, look at your dad, look at you.
yeah.
Um, you never stop learning. You never stop meeting interesting people and doing interesting things because of it. And if you're an interested person, you know, I mean, it's fuel for the whole, you know, the whole thing.
Totally. And that's like, I mean, my favorite part about it is the community that it creates. And I feel like freedom, you know, it's a pure form of freedom. Like you can, if you speak the language, you can express yourself however, you know, you feel like it. And then also, like, you know, if you're a songwriter, if you're telling a story, sometimes somebody just needs to hear that or wants to hear
Yeah.
that. And then you inspire them. And it's this like snowball effect of inspiration, which I think is a beautiful part of life. So why shouldn't it be celebrated and practiced?
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 That, I mean, that's, I couldn't say that better. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I love being, no, I'm just kidding.
Heck yeah.
Being right.
So are you excited for our gig?
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to that. We've never done a gig together
We've
before.
never done just the two of us. Yeah. I'm kind of stoked to see us. I think we're going to do all right. Come on.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
let's just tell everybody the reason why my dad's not going to be in LA is because he said 2 p.m. is too early. The dude.
Yeah. I love that.
No, but I mean, that's a lot for him. He's
Yeah,
78.
yeah.
Yeah.
God bless him, though. I mean, I always bring him up to people when they talk about, you know, being a lifer musician. When I'm like, you know what? Peter Lewis of Moby Grape is 78 years old, 77, 76, and he's out there, you know, trucking to Los Angeles, having sessions, playing shows, writing, putting out amazing records, never stops churning. You know, just it's always creating.
That's how he thinks. It's his language. And
Yeah.
I mean, I feel so lucky to have gotten to study with him and to be working with him and to met you
Yeah.
like all of this. It's like, how did this happen? You know, like it was
Right.
like a pipe dream and now I get to live it. So that's awesome. If you
Yeah,
follow
it
your
is
heart.
awesome. Yeah.
So anyway, I'll tell our listeners a little bit about our show that's coming up on August 5th. Will be George Adrian and I. George Adrian is my special guest. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about his extensive career in the music business and his career as a songwriter and recording artist and touring musician and his new band Seven Star and a project that he's working on with me and my dad, Peter Lewis from Moby Grape. George and I will be performing each of our original songs at the Redwood Bar next Saturday, August 5th. And that's going to be 2 p.m. as part of the International Pop Overthrow Music Festival. It's a free show, so we hope to see you there. You can find out more about George Adrian at georgeadrian.com, at official George Adrian on Instagram, or under his name, George Adrian, on any of your favorite digital listening platforms. You're listening to the Arwen Lewis Show, and we're going to take you out to break with a song from George Adrian's band Jay. It's called Sunset and Dreams, and we'll bring you back in with his song from his album Road Trip called Hurts to Hate Your Karma.
Perfect.
Cool.
Okay, so this one about 6-7 minutes.
Okay,
It's like the wrap up.
cool.
great.
wrap up.
Wrap it up.
Let's see.
Set up the song.
Okay. And then, okay, so we'll set up Grass is Dying. And then I also thought maybe I could ask about if there was one person you could write a song with, who would it be?
Okay.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, is there anything else that we missed, or are you happy with all the points?
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm having fun chatting with. Well,
Okay. Are you ready? Okay. Good morning. Oh. Good morning, everybody. This is Arwen Lewis. You're listening to the Arwen Lewis radio show. I have a very special guest today. This is George Adrian on my show. He's a Los Angeles-based musician, songwriter, recording artist, and has had some great experience in composing for film as well. And we're talking about his extensive career in the music business, all of his amazing projects, some that he's released, some that are coming up to be released. And George, so as a songwriter, I thought, maybe we could talk about, are all of the songs, is the process the same for all the songs you write? And also I wanted to ask, if you could write a song with one person who you haven't written with yet, who would it be?
oh, alive or dead?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Mm-mm.
That would be easy. It'd be Leonard Cohen,
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
Why Leonard Cohen?
I'm a devotee, huge fans since forever. I've got his books. I've read so many biographies. The guy's he's an interesting human, having a wild life, and as your dad once put it, a stone cold poet. So
Yeah.
And that's I think if anything that I do the most on a daily basis artistically is I just write like a lyric or anything. I try to kind of pay attention to the air, birds, whatever, the universe, and it seems like there's always like something, like a message being beamed out of somewhere, and I will write it down. Sometimes it might be just a paragraph, sometimes it's like 2 pages, right? And so I'm all like every day that's my process. And so if anything, I think, yeah, I love that the most is expressing myself like on a feeling that way. And when you meet, of course, there's people like Bob Dylan. History is littered with great minds and great artists and great poets. But I think Leonard Cohen, he was, for whatever reason, got me right off the bat.
Yeah.
And it's cool that Jeff Buckley made Hallelujah super duper famous. And I think more and more people got into him after that. Yeah, I got to pick him just because I would love to just sit in a room and let him tear apart my lyrics.
Oh my gosh. Well, he's just, there's nothing like him, and it's interesting to hear you say that, because I can totally hear that lyrically in your music, but like musically, I feel like and Road Trip, actually, it has a lot of really cool folky stuff, but I feel like it floats off and just, it's a little more, I don't know, just a little more raw, but not raw. Like Leonard Cohen was more raw, and then yours
Right.
is more like, just like built up, which is really cool. But that's really interesting that he's a foundation. I really love that song by him called Suzanne.
Oh, great song. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a Suzanne too. Yeah.
I heard it was Janis Joplin. That's what my dad told me.
Is it really? I thought that was the girl that he was enamored with his whole life, that he met in Greece. She was Swedish. They lived together for a minute.
You're probably right.
I don't know. Well, who knows? I could be wrong. It's been a minute since I read those.
My dad likes to tell stories.
Yeah, maybe it was. Yeah.
Or maybe, who knows? You're probably right. It sounds like you're very.
I don't know. We'll have to Google it.
Yeah. Can I get my phone? I'm just kidding. And did you start writing songs from a really young age, or was it when you started playing music too, or when?
Yeah, no, I didn't write songs, like complete songs till like I was probably in high school. But yeah, when I switched to guitars, when I started like really composing, like digging it like that way.
Nice.
And I would be, learning to sing. I was teaching at a school at one point, like this. It was a music school in Chicago, and there was like a vocal coach there, vocal teacher, and we would trade, I think, like guitar lessons for voice lessons or something like that. And then I would go home and I'd practice to the chagrin of my neighbors, just doing lots of scales and whatnot. But I always took it I always kind of have like the the Picasso approach versus the
Yeah.
Van Gogh approach to being a musician. I think whereas Van Gogh is like really just raw passion, and Picasso is like raw passion, but also technical excellence. Like you can tell he spent a lot of time doing scales, so to speak, right? Really honing his craft. I think that if you could push yourself to get that balance of, get proficient with your instrument or instruments to an expert level, or at least as close as you can, and then leave that room for creation.
Totally. And I agree with you. And I love ending on this note because we're going to give an example of what George was just describing with his songwriting process. We're going to feature in its entirety. Redo this. We're going to feature in its entirety George Adrian's song "The Grass Is Dying," and that's a song from his album Road Trip, his most recent solo release. And he's got some really amazing things coming up in the future too. And you can also come see me and George live at the Redwood Bar in Los Angeles on Saturday, August 5th at 2 p.m. It's a free show, part of the International Pop Overthrow Music Festival. My special guest today has been George Adrian. I'm Arwen Lewis, and you're listening to the Arwen Lewis Radio Show. Find out more about George Adrian at georgeadrian.com, at official George Adrian on Instagram, and under his name under your favorite digital platforms. Thanks for listening to the Arwen Lewis Show, and please enjoy The Grass is Dying.